Hey there, what do you say there? Hey there, beautiful day there. This is Jerome Shaw, host of the Open Palm Podcast Motivator. Meditator coming at you as we take another look inside this beautiful book, exploring more from the mind of Maor. This book is called A Year Without Food, and I trust that you're in the mood to learn as we continue and see what we have. Now, if you have not yet seen the introduction and the other sections, and you want more of a recollection, go ahead and go back to the other ones on the Pranic pages for more wisdom of the ages with one of today's modern sages as we progress through the stages. My pranic living process. Knowing that you are going into the Breatharian process is a preparation in itself. Even though I wanted to mentally and physically prepare myself for the journey, my guide insisted that everything would happen in the process itself. There was no need for additional pre-processed tasks, except of course for the 1-week raw food diet prior to the process. The raw food diet is not mandatory, but helps to release toxins that would otherwise be released during the pranic living process itself, and might make the extended process physically easier. Since I already had a good 7-year practice of a 1-day fast on a weekly basis, I already knew what happens to the body during fasting and knew what to expect. The only practice that was necessary for me was a mental one. That's a big one. Letting go of my favorite foods plus social expectations and standards. The last thing for me to do was train myself to be judged and perhaps ridiculed from time to time because of my choice. Yes, because of your choice, many people will use their voice to describe how they feel about your choice. Since breatharians are mostly unknown in the Western world, I knew most of the difficulties after the process would most likely be social. I expected full support from my wonderful supporting semi-hippie family, but some of my friends were a different matter altogether. To best prepare myself, I did everything I needed to close the open issues in my life, as if I was going for a long jungle vacation. It came at a perfect time, since the startup company I was working for had been bought by another company. During the in-between time of the acquisition, I could take the liberty of a long vacation. And sometimes when we take a long, solid food vacation, it becomes a staycation for those who discover more peace and playcation. I rented out my Tel Aviv apartment, paid all my bills, left an auto alert message on my email, and let the important people in my life know that I would absolutely not be available for the following 3 weeks. Since I did not know what the outcome of the process would be, I decided not to tell everyone where I was going. Most of my inner circle was not aware that this life option was real, and so I wanted to let them know about the process only after I went through it. And I think that's definitely wise to allow people to know after you've gone through, Yeah. This was to ensure that their negative remarks would not influence me and affect my subconscious mind during the 3 weeks. Exactly. Because if you let people know what you're doing before the time, you might be less inclined to push through. It might impact and influence all that you do within your own process. So my recommendation would be as well to be careful who you tell. I decided to tell those closest to me where I was going. I spoke to my partner at the time, my parents, my sister, who was to be my caretaker. It was important to tell them that after the process, my body would take time to recover and that I would return quite skinny. It was important for me to prepare them for my own journey, as I would require their understanding, or rather, lack of judgment. That was one thing I was not ready for after my pranic process and my initiation. When I had that reintegration back, I wasn't quite ready for that. You know, the negative energy that came my way when people, namely my parents, saw me that day. I was driven to my selected location and unpacked the many things I thought would be important during my time there. The process itself began at midnight, so my spouse had time to say goodbye and spend some time at the location with me. For my last meal, I decided to have a persimmon. I remember I took just one bite of it and immediately realized it must have gone bad. I spit it out and understood that my lesson was a lesson in absolute release from solid food. I was happy that the fruit had gone bad. It was one less thing to think about. I could write an entire book about what happened during the pranic living process. The personal journal I wrote at the time is on my website. Those of you who are interested can use Google to translate the passages, as many have already done. I'm assuming, since from Israel, that it's in the other language. I attempt to provide the best highlights from my journal here. The first 3 days of the process are days of cleansing. This cleansing and detoxification are done automatically by the body. Like we understand, the body doesn't really need our help to do what it can already do automatically. Since I did not allow myself any water in the first week, my body had to use its supplies by taking water from my muscles, organs, and fat. Remember, this is a process. So in the beginning, it is just a long dry fast. The cleansing was both emotional and physical. Water, as many new researchers have documented, contains information. Our toxins and emotional states are saved inside the water in our body. This is why a dry fast is excellent for releasing and cleaning both the body and mind. The body is using up its old batteries and energy sources, forcing itself to break apart old cells that are no longer at their energetic prime. So out with the old, in with the new, right? In addition, water is finally being brought out of the darkest areas of the body, and while the body resets itself to be more energy efficient, it lowers the blood pressure to save energy. So you take from the deep water. Since there are absolutely no normal things to be done throughout the process, I started developing my own schedule. I had a drawing board and a lot of art to make, especially sacred geometry, painting, and puzzles. I tried to get into the habit of doing stretches every day. Each sunrise and sunset, I spent time outside gazing at the sun and meditating on it. I read an average of half a book a day. Most books were on spiritual or scientific topics. I followed my intuition. It whispered to me that the knowledge I was obtaining during the process would be integrated deep within my subconscious. During the first 3 days, I felt like I was actually just waiting and building a happy state of being for the rest of the process. These are days of belief, of fasting and acknowledging what it is you are concentrating on to accomplish. Many define these days as the days of small amounts of doubt. This is because you have not yet had the 100% assurance in your abilities. Starting on the night of the third day, something special started to happen. If you read the 21-day guidelines in the book Pranic Nourishment, Living on Light by Jasmuheen, you will understand that you are actually reactivating ancient knowledge we used to have but lost. To achieve this state of awareness, one must, from the fourth day on, incorporate 3 intervals of 2 hours, each during which time it is recommended that you do not move but lie down in the same position. The intervals can get boring. After all, it is a 6-hour meditation on a daily basis. The purpose of the intervals is to allow contract holders and process observers to work on your body, fix energy tunnels, and detoxify and balance the 4 bodies. I was quite amazed by the sensations that went through my body. It was the first time that I felt another presence touching me. I felt wavy energy all over the right side of my face, which I could influence and control with meditation and breathing. I also felt a concentration of energy shifting wherever I had a scar on my body. It was as if the energy that had been stuck in that spot was released and was able to start flowing freely. Since then, I have heard many different accounts of physical sensations experienced by people who have completed the process with me as their guide. These 4 crucial days are what I call the surgery and the highlight of the process. You know, it's interesting because this reminds me of Rocky Chari, one of my mentors, and she talked about this as well, where it felt like there was another being, you know, either a otherworldly or a galactic being or some sort of being that was freeing the energy in her body, you know, seeing the energy in her body and then tapping in to draw it out or help her detoxify, help her reprogram, help her recalibrate and reorganize, restore, renew, rebalance, reinvigorate, revitalize, re-energize, you know. And after that process, she felt reborn, you know, renewed, restored. So realizing there's always more, you know. So thank you, Maor. After the 4 days, we continue in recovery, allowing the body time to integrate the new, or should I say, ancient and forgotten technology and beliefs into itself. When the 7th day finally arrived, on the 7th day, I like that, I was relieved. My guide had physically come for the first and only time during the process for my first water drink. The water ceremony is short and exciting. I read a small prayer and acknowledged water as purifying and mesmerizing and allowed it into my body for the first time in my new life. Imagine being without water for an entire week. During that week, you are not allowed to swallow any water at all, not given a drop. I took showers and brushed my teeth, but only held water in my mouth. Not drinking even a drop is crucial for the success of the process. Without water, one fears dehydration, especially during such an extended period of time. But nothing bad happens to those who believe in the process. I remember clearly that during the 4th or 3rd day, the 3rd and 4th day, I became weaker, mostly due to lower blood pressure. This has caused some minor dizziness from time to time, especially when I stood up too quickly. So I want to real quick highlight something he said, that nothing bad happens to those who believe in the process, you know? And it's a testament to realize that most of the time it's really just the mind, you know? Lacking water had a great psychological effect on me. I missed it a lot, and I learned how to appreciate this fine element from an entirely different point of view. Even my subconscious missed it so much that it became the subject of many dreams I had at the time. Imagine, just dreaming about having some water. In some dreams, I watched a glass of water continuously elude my grasp, while in other dreams, I just felt a deep need to drink. However, I was really surprised that I did not get thirsty at all. The only thing I physically felt being in that state was that my throat was always dry. It is a constant reminder that you are in the process, and it never goes away during the first week. I can relate. When I did the longest dry period, which was around 2 weeks, I do remember my throat being very dry, my mouth being very dry, and my tongue eventually collected a lot of this white substance. Like my whole tongue was white, like grayish white. And I had never seen that color, It's like if you've ever had like a popsicle and you've licked a popsicle, like a blue popsicle, and your whole tongue was blue, right? Well, in the fasted state, in this dry state for a long period of time, soon my whole tongue was like grayish whitish. It's crazy. It's like, what is this? But I think that it was part of that detox process, that there were so many things that were being released, and that was just a form of letting it go, shedding, And after a while, that actually went away. And just like he said, I wasn't thirsty, I wasn't hungry. I was just being fed by the forces, So it was an amazing process to go through. Even when I washed my mouth out with water, I only had half a minute of relief, and then my throat went quickly back to being completely dry. Amazingly enough, throughout the week, I continued to pass urine. It was dark and orange and had a strong odor. And I feel like that's from the deep water that is pulling as well. The first few days, the color and smell was strong, but after that, it became pure and watery. I understood that the kidneys continue to clean the body even when the body is not taking in new water. Yes. After my first glass of water, I felt naturally high. I stopped meditating and deviated from my daily schedule on purpose. I had come to the realization that anything I did during the process was automatically in a meditative state. So no intentional meditations were required. Time had shifted for me, and I seemed to have more time to actually be in the present moment in whatever I decided to do. I took pleasure in almost everything. I took much longer to enjoy stretching, showering, or gazing at the sky, or smelling a flower. On one occasion, I even followed an ant and some of her friends for a few hours. It was an incredible sensation of oneness with all that is. The days turned into nights, and I slowly forgot about the outside world while the process intensified. I only talked to my caretaker and my guide once a day, and these were 10-minute conversations each. I had not yet missed the outside world, and I was incredibly happy in my isolation. The second and third weeks were easier than the first. My guide had given me some exercises and meditations. Some were contemplations about mindfulness, gratitude, and forgiveness. Some were mind games to keep me and my mind busy, while others were meant to assist me in shifting my consciousness to a higher state of being and to release parts of my education and my past. Yeah, I feel like this journey a lot of the times is less about learning and more about unlearning and relearning, the things that we think that we know. I will refrain from describing the actual exercises and meditations as they are kept secret for those who choose to become breatharians. I will say that I enjoyed all of them and each had a specific goal. whether to clear my mind, to shift one's understanding about the world, or to simply let go of parts of the past that are no longer necessary to hold on to. The third week is defined as the integration week, and it is the first time that you can start leaving your habitat. I started walking a little more each day until I was walking 5 or 6 kilometers per day towards the end. I had more and more energy with each passing day. Other sensations also started changing. Since I did the process in the middle of January, it was winter and cold outside. During my short hikes, I found that my body behaved differently. I started walking more upright. My mind felt clearer and sharper, and I felt more in control, more vivid, more aware of myself. Allow me to elaborate using the body temperature as an example. Before the process, I had normal sensations of cold and warm, but now I felt as if my body was allowing me less negative sensations. This means I still understood that my body was cold, but it was as if I was watching it from the outside and witnessed the symptoms of being cold instead of experiencing the sensation of being cold. It was as if I had been given control over my internal temperature. The same happened to me with pain. It felt that my pain tolerance increased overnight. Even though there is plenty more to say about what happened in my process and the changes that happened during and after it, I have decided not to elaborate more on it at this time. Perhaps one day I will have my personal journal translated and edited and will release it for a deeper understanding of this hidden but most important and interesting process. Until then, as previously mentioned, it is available on my website. Preparations for my initiation. 4 months after first hearing about Breatharianism, I contemplated undergoing the process myself. Sometimes I even had dreams about what it would be like. I also talked to as many people as possible who had experienced the process firsthand to assure myself that I was all ready for it and that I was ready to find out what I could expect to happen. Then one day, I abruptly decided to go for it. Thinking about and understanding this lifestyle is one thing. I wanted to really know it and feel it within my own body. So it's that feeling that is, being a scientist in your own laboratory, experimenting, testing and finding out for yourself. Besides that, I also have always loved a good challenge, and I was never very good at cooking. Well, the day you decide to set the date for your process is the day you should actually start your process. I decided to set my date for mid-January 2013. I chose this date because it continued on from the 21st of December 2012. That date, according to some, held a significant shift in the Earth's energy fields, and it was believed that great changes would occur. It was also known as the end of the Maya's historical calendar and the end of a few major Earth cycles. I had been researching this auspicious 21st of December 2012 date for many years, as it signified a change in the frequency of our collective consciousness. Of course, I was expecting something big to happen. Yet the day came and went without event. Later, I realized that this something big was up to me, and so I decided to become breatharian. My own preparations for the process brought me face to face with some of my fears. The first of which was a week-long dry fast without water. Science tells us that a person is likely to die after 4 days without water. To overcome this, I decided to test the water a little bit before diving in, so to speak. I undertook an air fast for a few days while maintaining my own routine of working and exercising. That went rather smoothly, and I was happy to find out that it wasn't as difficult as I had anticipated. Another exercise I did was to slowly let go of my favorite foods when I went shopping. This is by no means a mandatory exercise, but I wanted to experience the loss of certain tastes to see how I would cope. I released one flavor at a time from my diet before the big bang. The first thing I stopped buying was cheese. That's a tough one to give up. Okay, so I would still allow myself pizza and other cheesy foods when I went out with my friends or when I really wanted them, but it was no longer a routine item that I kept in the fridge. Thank you for your honesty. Over the course of 2 months, pending my process, I began to slowly relinquish my attachment to other favorite foods. Setting the date was one thing, but I also had some organizing to do to ensure the process would run smoothly. This included finding a suitable location for the process, subletting my apartment, and organizing leave from work so that the rest of my world was ready for my 3-week-long absence. I also had to appoint a caretaker to look after me during the process. This was a position my sister was happy to fill. Most people do not get to have a family member as a caretaker. Most parents and siblings get scared when a family member embarks on this process. They worry, thinking the person has lost their grip on reality in a new age experiment. I was lucky enough to have my sister's support from the start. Tal naturally became my breatharian guide, and we met a few times before the process to ensure that I was mentally ready and that I was doing it for the right reasons. It was during our last meeting in Tel Aviv, right before my ride came to take me to my 21-day location, that Tal told me something I will never forget. He said, "What you are about to do is not taken for granted. I'm proud of you." It wasn't until he spoke these words that I truly began to feel the fullness of my commitment. As his words echoed in my ears, I asked myself one last time, am I really going to stop eating? And we'll go ahead and pause this reading. And next time we will continue proceeding. But for now, I trust that you have received some new concepts you might not have conceived. But this perception that we now perceive will be something that is found and seen. And as we continue, you'll know what I mean. Much love to you, my friend. Much love to you again. Thank you for this time that we spend realizing there is no end. As we continue through the stages, with the wisdom of the ages, we'll see you next time on the Pranic pages.